G'day folks, welcome to Backyard Legends with Bevo. I'm your host Bevan Jones, where we talk to some absolute legends, from celebrity chefs to superstars of sport and entertainment icons. They tell us about the windows that they broke while playing backyard cricket, to building amazing tree houses and slip and slides as well, and how they relax in their backyards today. So pull up your deck chairs, put your feet up and get ready for some ripping stories.
Welcome to Garden Master, the home of quality sheds, celebrating 50 years of Australian-made quality and backyard expertise. We offer a range of products, sheds, aviaries, animal shelters, shade houses and more, all built to last with our 25-year structural guarantee. 5 decades of craftsmanship and passion have created the Garden Master legacy. Join thousands of Australians who trust us for their backyard needs. Visit gardenmaster.net.au today to explore our range and redeem your special anniversary offer. Australian made, Australian quality. Garden Master, the home of quality sheds.
Ben Porter, great to have you on Backyard Legends with Bevo. The book 10 Clubs for the Golden Age of the SANFL, 27 years. I've got it here. Unbelievable book, and thanks so much for the copy as well, Ben.
That. Yeah, no, it's fine.
Just can't wait to have a read and tell my mates about this as well, and my family as well. Especially my brother and dad are huge SANFL fans. So
okay. Who were they supporters of?
So my dad, believe it or not, this is everyone can't believe this story. Mum and I are both Magpies.
Okay.
And Dad and my brother are Centrals. So
gee, that is a funny mix for those days. Yeah.
So we had a big rivalry growing up, especially when we played each other.
Yeah, and Port Adelaide used to always beat Centrals in the finals.
Yeah, exactly. No, we had some good banter over the years, and now they're sort of, especially during the 2000s, obviously, where the Doggies kept on dominating.
Came good, yeah.
They were just well and truly had the wood in us. But it's. Let's get back to your own journey growing up, though, Ben.
Yep.
You had a father who played SANFL League footy.
He did. Yep.
Tell us about growing up as a child and going along and watching your dad play and your love of the footy as well.
I never got to see him play, although that's slightly untrue. I never saw him play league football, but in 1979-80, North Adelaide's 1960 premiership team had a reunion and they played against Broadview, who I think were an A1 club at that stage. So I remember as a pretty young kid going into the change rooms at Broadview Oval and mixing with the league players. There was a handful of league players, a handful of the old 1960s side. The old man was, I think, 21st man, didn't actually play in that game, but played in that squad that year. So guys like Bob Hammond and, some pretty big names, and Barry Barbary was there that day. So, that was another little introduction. And then as a kid, the old man used to take me to Prospect Oval and all the grounds. And what I picked up really early in the piece with the old man was people knew who he was. And you'd be there as a little kid on the end of his arm, and people would be just giving you a little nod, a little, how you doing?
So he played for the Roosters?
He played for the Roosters, yeah. He was.
And you're a big
North
Roosters
Adelaide
fan?
man, yeah. And he only played 25 league games. He was 125 reserves games. He was premiership captain of 64, 65 reserves premierships. And one of the great stories, and again, this is the sort of folklore that I grew up with, was in 1966, it was his final game. He's about to retire. He's the captain. They'd won the 64, 65 reserves premierships. They're getting ready for another finals campaign, going for 3 in a row. And one of the recruiters comes in. The recruiters comes into the change rooms. They're about to pick the side. The old man's obviously one of the selectors. And they said, hang on, fellas, we've got a guy we want to bring down from Whyalla. We're going to bring him down for this final series, see if he can show what he's got. And the old man is not happy, Jonesy's Bevo's been playing with me all year. I'm going to have to leave Bevo out to bring this Whyalla chap down for a game of footy, you see. Not happy. No, the recruiter was adamant. This bloke would be worth it. The guy's name was B.C. Robran, who turned out to be a pretty reasonable footballer. So the old man stood in Barry's way very briefly, but that didn't last. And obviously by 68, Barry was a McGarry medalist. So there you go. So there you are. There's one of the stories. And that's the sort of stuff I grew up with as a kid. And then, of course, you go into the footy, you're playing footy on a Saturday morning. I touched on the blurb there about, freezing cold mornings up at Mount Lofty, playing in the mud with your mates from school, and your fingers, you can't get your shoelaces undone because it's so cold. I mean, you started at 7:30.
I played for Birdwood in the other
there you go.
So
you know exactly what you're talking about, yeah. And I think that's the sort of in-ground sort of stuff that we really got in. We were really into it, and I had a good mate of mine, Tommy Charlton, who, we're still friends today, and we used to kick the footy religiously, and we would just be trying to better each other as sports people, as a cricketer, as a footballer. He was better than me, and I think him being better than me probably helped me become a better overall sportsman. So it was a good thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and growing up in the Adelaide Hills, obviously you mentioned before your dad was 25 league games in the SANFL, and do you have some good memories growing up kicking a footy with your dad in the backyard? Did you have siblings as well?
I did. I had a brother. I got a twin sister and an older sister and a brother. Look, probably not so much with the brothers and sisters, more with Tom Charlton, because we were the same age, went to the same primary school. We were the ones playing sport, and you get the call late at night, come home, dinner's ready, so we have to continue the cricket match. That was the great thing about daylight saving, is because you get to play. You'd have cricket on the TV. Yeah. You'd probably have World Series cricket on the TV, and you'd be David Hooks playing on Tommy Charlton's driveway. And as I said, he was always a bit better than I was, but that didn't matter.
So. Mate, I know exactly what you mean. They were just the best days growing up, weren't they? And it's sad that kids these days, are missing out on that because they spend so much time on their screens.
It is really interesting. Let's go forward, a long way forward into my life as a coach. In my pre-season programs, I used to take clubs, all my footy clubs, on a Saturday morning. I would take them up to the Blair National Park, and I'd train them on the main oval up there, you see. And I would take the kids with me, and my kids were sort of 5 and 7 at this stage. And they thought going for a day's walk in the National Park was the best thing, you see. And I'd be out there training, running footy for 45, 50 minutes on a Saturday morning. And they'd nick off and they'd be exploring in the creeks and in the, in the mountains and all that. And you'd go, where are the kids gone? They've just gone exploring, which I reckon's great, because you're right. They don't have that sort of sense of adventure like we had. Yeah. We had a great life. We're very, very fortunate to have lived when we did.
And living in the Adelaide Hills, did you have a big property, and were you one to play the old hide and seek and climb trees?
Not really. The Blair National Park was our playground. And when I think I was about 11 when I first got my first bike, and that just gave you the freedom. And you would just go riding in the National Park, and you would not come back until 6 o'clock at night, and you'd be covered in filth, and you'd just been riding and doing all sorts of things. Good harmless fun. Building forts, whatever. But nobody knew where you were. There was no mobile phones. And if something went wrong, your stepbrother or somebody fell off his bike and broke his arm, you sorted it, and you've somehow managed to get them back. There's no mobile phones. You get him back home. Eventually, you get him up to the local Blackwood Hospital.
And your parents aren't too happy.
That's right. So, what's going on? And get a clip around the ears for being so stupid. But now, look, we were very fortunate and again, the sport, the cricket, footy, you'd have an abandoned tennis court. Right? Well, that wouldn't worry us. That would turn into a cricket pitch, and you'd have a game of cricket, and that's two, hit the back fence, that's 4, automatic wicky, and just, to this day, I'm still playing cricket, but that love of the game certainly started as a 7 or 8 year old kid.
And with the book, obviously, it would take a number of years to write this one. Did you be one of those people that like to just go and sit in the backyard and put your feet up and relax on a hammock as you come up with different ideas as well, Ben?
Yeah, Bevo, sadly, I'm not one of those blokes who's a very good guy, sit still laying in hammocks. What I do is 100 mile an hour. Everything's 100 mile an hour, and you squeeze it all in. But what would happen, and the wife, she would say to me, good old Melanie, bless her, you're doing your scrapbooking here, and you're up too late doing your scrapbooking. And I kind of was. I was cutting out pictures, doing research. Before the book got to where it is now, I came up with like a hard cardboard version of it, which was cutting and pasting photographs, which was a very obviously basic way to do it, but it gave me the sense of what the product was going to look like. But I would get into strife because I would be up there until well after midnight. I just couldn't put it down. You know what I mean? I couldn't. As soon as you, I get that, and I remember that, and I'll write that down, and And again, when the interviews start, when you started to interview the players, and they're starting to fill in the gaps, and they're starting to give you the information, but more than that, they're giving you the emotional, the raw human element, and that's one of the issues at the moment with the Western Australian book, which is 95,000 words in. I've done a heap of research on it, and I've got a lot of facts and figures, but it's just a regurgitation of facts. I need to sit down and interview some more blokes like I did with the SANFL to get that real human aspect to it, because that's really where the essence of this book comes out. guys like Eddie Fry. Eddie Fry is a very difficult man to get hold of, and he sat down and spoke to me about how tribal the SANFL was, and how interesting that was to hear from an Indigenous guy to say that. And then another guy, Neville Roberts, I spoke to him for 2.5 hours. He spoke about how the SANFL was the only game in town. It's so true. We didn't really care about what happened in the VFL. We just wanted to enjoy Nord versus North or Port and Sturt or whatever was happening at the time. And that's why the South Australian product has really stood up. No doubt.
Yeah, well said. And I think even now there's still people that just love the SANFL and don't want to have a bar of the AFL because that same kind of thing, and they're just so pro-SA.
It absolutely is. And it's what worries me, and again, this is a part of the reason I wrote the book and why I'm doing the same thing for the Waffle, is we need to keep it alive. We can't let it just disappear, because it's part of, I made a bit of a joke on Cornsy's show about how the hope for the book was for every kid in South Australia to have a copy to learn it in Australian history. That was probably a bit ambitious, but I do believe that it's a part of our state's history that we don't want to lose, because it was a pretty special product and a very special time. That period right up until 1990 was superb footy. You think about the State of Origin games and the frenzy that would create in South Australia when the Vicks came to town and we'd win. It was unbelievable.
Hey folks, do you love your footy? Are you over 35 and want to be part of something very special on Anzac Day in 2025 in Gallipoli? Well, check this out.
The Slugs plan to play men's and women's games here at this soccer ground, the closest to the Gallipoli battlefields during the 2025 commemorations. The idea to make it spectacular, to fill this entire area with Aussie Anzac pilgrims. Vincent Malia tours with the Southern Slugs. Footy, he says, is perfect to honour the Diggers.
They would love it, I'm sure, because it's bringing Australia over there, isn't it?
I'm presuming you're interviewing likes of like Barry Rodman and Russell Ebert and those sort of people with the book as well?
Look, in fairness, let's talk about Russell Ebert quickly. David Tiller, who's a good friend of mine, David and I coached at South Adelaide together.
Ex-North Adelaide player.
Ex-North Adelaide player.
Yeah.
He was my idol as a kid. I had, as a kid growing up, Peter Cloak was my first idol, then David Tiller on the back of the duffer coat, David Four Tiller.
Yeah.
Fast forward to 2007, I get a job as the development manager at South Adelaide, and David Tiller's the under-17s coach. So I walk into David's house and go, David, you are aware that you used to be on the back of my duffel coat, up until the age of about 13. So, that's a bit weird, but we soon got over that. And, David was at the Past Players Day recently. And again, that was a great snapshot, an opportunity for people that I'd played and coached against in the Southern League came out in force to hear me speak that day, which was really great. Some of the interviews that we've had, Greg Whittlesey, right? Now, Greg Whittlesey if anyone knows anything about Greg Whittlesey, he's one of the most humble, normal humans you're ever going to meet. The guy's a McGarry medalist. He's a star. Played State of Origin footy, played in the AFL. I met him at the Yankalilla Bakery, right? And he was about 45 minutes late. I've driven all the way down to Yankalilla. I'm supposed to be working, but I'm down there selling my book. And I'm sitting in the bakery and this bloke hasn't turned up. And I'm thinking it's getting dark, and he hasn't turned up. Anyway, out of the blue, this bloke comes in with these shoes that he's been working in the field all day. He's got his boots on, he's got his shorts on, he's got a sleeveless top on, hairy chest, and the tough, gruff voice that Greg Whittlesey has, and what a star. We spoke for an hour and a half in the bakery, in the Yankalilla Bakery, so that was an exciting interview. Russell Ebert, I got to meet Russell at Port Adelaide. Again, another example. This is a guy, he's a 4-time McGarry medalist, a legend of Australian rules football. He turns up in his shorts and his bodgy T-shirt. He'd straight out of the Waikerie Hotel. You're like two blokes just getting together for a chat. And he was really humble and a terrific person. And everybody's known anything about Russell says the same thing. He's such a great human being. But he was 6 weeks away from declaring his ill health at that stage. And he politely declined an offer to stay involved in the book, and I suspect that was partly because of it, because it wasn't long after you see those images of how unwell Russell was. Yeah. So, but he was great. Johnny McFarlane, another great guy. Through my work, I go and visit a lot of clubs, a lot of schools, a lot of people involved in sport. Met Johnny McFarlane at Flinders University. He had some great stories to tell about his career and his life. Keith Coleman and Chris McClay were both principals at primary schools that I just happened to be out there selling my wares to. And I go, "You're Keith Coleman." He goes, "Yeah, that's right." I said, "Oh, you're also the 1980 All-Australian fullback. How about we sit down for half an hour and have a chat?" So he did. And, all footballers have got egos. All of them. We all do. Every footballer who's ever played the game thinks that they're okay. And that's part of what it's about. So they were always pretty good in coming forward and having a few words. So, yeah.
But also down to earth at the same time. So,
great people. The fact that they're prepared to give their time and talk to a nobody like me is I think, has really helped. Eddie Fry again with Ian Borchard. What a terrific guy. Ian Borchard, Premiership captain of West Adelaide, told a funny story about how Curly hated Victorians, but he really liked Ian Borchard, and none of the Westies players could work out why. And eventually they worked out that Curly thought he was from Swan Reach, not Swan Hill. Right? So Borchard played on this and got away with it for most of the time. Probably the reason he made him captain, probably. But yeah, no, great. Ian Borchard, terrific man. And again, my involvement in football has just opened doors. Wherever I've gone, you've met people. And happy to chat. Mortal enemies. I've coached against and played against a lot of these blokes, and they're all trying to outdo you and beat you. But once the game stops, you go and have a beer and a chat, and it's great times. It's one of those things that's just well, it's been the best thing I've ever done.
In terms of like when you're actually doing these interviews and stuff, Ben, and going to some of the houses of like Barry Roberins and other these sort of people, is there some memories as well as going to their house? And did some of them have big backyards and that sort of thing? Did you have barbecues?
Look, I never had barbecues. I tended to not want to overstay my welcome, right? Another good story, Len Warren. Now, Lenny Warren is a mate of another mate of mine, again, who I met through footy, through the Marion Footy Club, Peter Good. He works with Lenny Warren. Now, Lenny Warren lives down at Taparoo and could have easily been forgotten about in the history, because in the end, he only played 30 league games, right? But two of those league games were in the 1977 and 1981 grand finals, which Port Adelaide won. So he was a two-time premiership player. Anyway, Peter Good tells me, Lenny Warren works with me. And I said, well, I haven't got a Port. I actually ended up speaking with Greg Anderson, so I had one Port Adelaide player. I needed a second. Well, Lenny Warren will do, So I drive out to Taparoo, down the end of nowhere, and go and sit in this guy's house. And, he was chuffed that anybody had even remembered him, let alone wanted to sit down and have a chat with him and have an interview with him. And then later when the book was released, my promise to all the guys who I interviewed was I'll get you a free copy. So I go down to the post office area where they collect all the mail, and I present this book to Lenny Warren in front of, and all his mates, all the working mates, all just thought this was unbelievable. And Len Warren has stood taller from this day forth because of him being in my book. So he did me a favour and I did him one. So, look, some humble places, there's no doubt. I mean, I think the other thing about the way it is these days, guys like David Tiller and any number of them, they would have played AFL football in this day, right? But in the time, they just played in the SANFL. So Gary McIntosh, a great, was a champion. It's a shame that, look, again, this leads to another area, doesn't it? The game as it is today could be different, right? You could have played your cards differently, the AFL, and you could have protected all these clubs and kept the whole thing going. I would have liked to see an English Premier League type program where you have divisions, because really we've been looking after helping clubs like St Kilda and Footscray and Melbourne, who were all defunct in the 80s for years. We come into this, the West Coast come in, the Crows come in, Fremantle, Port Adelaide come in. They've got to pay huge dollars to get in just to supplement the Victorian sides who are still no good. Okay, Melbourne won a flag recently, so has Footscray, but St Kilda haven't won a flag for 60 years.
And the Kangaroos have been
And the Kangaroos are just in all sorts of strife. Nothing's ever worked on the Gold Coast, and yet, Norwood, Port Adelaide are obviously in it, but Norwood and Sturt and North Adelaide and Glenelg, where will they be in 25 years' time?
Exactly.
I hope they're still around. I go to the footy at the SANFL and I'm the youngest bloke in the grandstand. They're going to become museums, these clubs. And I went to Western Australia recently to do some research on that, and the same thing. I went inside the East Perth change rooms, and I met the East Perth property steward. He was about 150 years old, and he rolls a cigarette and he's telling me about how nothing's changed in those change rooms in 60 years. He said the AFL have forgotten about us. You go to Leaderville Oval, and I've played footy in the country at grounds that are better than that.
Yeah.
I do hear that. I mean, I've got some friends. I've got a friend at Swan Districts. They are getting an upgrade, and East Fremantle have had an upgrade. But the one thing that I'm pleased about with the SANFL is the grounds are getting upgrades. North Adelaide have got a new entertainment centre. Sturt's new facility is really, really good. Obviously, Nords is very, very good, high class. So, you know, you just hope that they've got a future. South Adelaide, West Adelaide,
Yeah.
where are they going to be? 25 years' time.
And your thought, important the Crows being in the SANFL?
I prefer them to be in it because I think it just gives our competition a little bit more substance. I think Port Adelaide, SANFL without Port Adelaide is not a good look. I don't like that. I like the 10-team concept, so Adelaide I would like to see Woodville and West Torrens demerge and go back to being West. I've got lots of long-suffering West Torrens supporters, you know, who just yearn for their club to come back. And when you do the history and you look at some of the great players you had, you go, yeah, I can understand they want their club back, but it's not going to happen. But yeah, look, I like SANFL having Port Adelaide and Adelaide in it because I think it just keep it an 8-team comp without them. I don't think it has the same oomph.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see whether it becomes a national reserves competition, and it sounds like it's going to be sooner rather than later anyway, doesn't it? So,
at the end of the day, the clubs are pushing for it, but the AFL haven't got the money to afford it. If someone's got to pay for it, you know, and at the end of the day, they've got their hands full. Football is expanding in other areas, as we all know, and someone's got to pay for that. So we'll see.
And you talked before, Ben, about, you know, playing sport with your friend rather than sort of your dad and your siblings growing up, but kids of your own, are you now sort of living those same memories through them and, you know, kicking the footy with, have you got daughters?
Yeah, I've got a son and a daughter. And look, absolutely. There's a couple of things that I made sure that I would do for my son, and that was to teach him how to bowl properly. I had a terrible bowling action. I used to tuck my head, so he's always had a very nice action, and I had a pretty bit of a canky sort of kicking style, which I inherited from my dad. I was a good overhead mark, but I couldn't kick very well. Probably why I didn't play league footy.
Same as me.
Yeah, but that's right. This is the excuse. I trained hard, but I just couldn't kick properly. So I made sure my son could do both of those things.
Yeah.
And he's enjoyed it. You know, he certainly still plays cricket, and we play cricket together at Morphy Parks and love it. And my daughter, she did a little bit of netball and got into that and enjoyed that. And then she took up water polo. And she was a gun. My daughter was a gun water polo player, and she played state, you know, 14s, 15s, that sort of stuff. And as a 15-year-old, she won Henley's Best and Fairest in the year they won the A-grade flag. So she was playing against older women.
Wow.
And there was a great story one day when I was out at the Aquatic Centre, sitting in the grandstand, and she was playing B-grade. She was 14, she was playing against some girls who were a bit older, bit more advanced, that sort of stuff. Anyway, and the game finishes, they get out of the pool, and this older lady, 25, 26-year-old older girl, wouldn't shake Holly's hand. And I couldn't believe it. Anyway, we get in the car and we're driving home. That was a good game, Holly. I always take notes about how all that, you know, I learned more about water polo then than I ever learned before. But I said, this was good, and you did that. That was a good pass and shot a goal. Well done. What happened at the end of the game when you got out of the pool? She wouldn't shake your hand. Well, Holly says to me, she said, well, you know how water polo is quite a physical game, Dad? I'm going, oh, yeah, it looks quite physical, absolutely. Well, what happens under the water, you just don't, you know, you probably don't want to know about. I said,
I've heard that, yeah.
Well, this older girl, she swung past, she's pulled my bathers up and put them right up my bum, right? And I'm going, oh, that's not very good. I said, so what did you do? So I turned around and I punched her in the nose. Now, I'm not an advocate of violence, right? But at the same time, if someone says I wasn't happy that she punched this lady in the face, I was, because she stood up for herself, and I went, yeah, you got something, Holly. So, anyway, she doesn't play anymore, which is a bit of a shame, but yeah, that was Holly and Jordan's sport. Good fun. But we used to kick the footy at school. It was marks up. Marks up at school was what it was about. And again, a bit like the backyard cricket. You learn how to take contested marks because there could be 8 blokes in a pack.
Yeah, I love that.
Depending on the quality of the kick, depending on where you stood, you know, you can get swallowed up, or someone take a big mark on your head, or you might take a couple
Older people trying to take the hangers.
Yeah, that's right. You know, and the smart ones will be at the back, and the young, be at the front and get kneed in the back of the head. But again, that sort of stuff was very much primary school and high school stuff because there was nothing else. We didn't have computer games or anything like that. You know, I didn't have a lot of money as a kid, so footy and cricket, that was all I needed. Yeah. No, well said. And absolutely speaking my language there as well. So makes me excited. I just get so excited talking about it for sure. Hey, before I let you go, Ben, we could just talk all day about the book and everything else. Once again,
10 clubs for 27 years, folks.
Yep.
Get yourself a copy of that one.
Yep.
But yeah, just wanted to ask you about, obviously, interviewing all these great people. What have you learned about relaxing and mental health as well? Because obviously mental health is such a big thing these days, and we have the Are You OK days and what have you as well, and different programs, and there's so much mental health awareness. But obviously back in those days, there wasn't that sort of thing. So yeah, what have you learned about that?
Yeah, I think it's a really good point. I think that as a society, we've come a long way. And I think that we talk about the concussions as well. You talk about how when we played football, you get a knock in the head. It was, I remember coming on, having stitches put in my head and being back on by quarter time. You know, you just can't do that anymore, you know, and it's being revealed that the concussions have caused some sort of, you know, depression in guys. So that's been highlighted with Danny Frawley's left and that sort of stuff. But you're right, the whole world has become more aware of people's mental health, and it's really important. I've seen it with my own kids, and social media is played, unfortunately, a negative role in all of that, and it's unavoidable now. The cat's out of the bag. But we never had that. We never had that. We had sport. We put our arm around each other and played sport together. And it does make me think about the people who didn't play sport back in my day. If you weren't playing sport, what were you doing? And you probably were a bit of an outcast, and you probably had mental health issues, and none of us knew about it. We really didn't. You're either in the footy team or you weren't, and if you weren't, you kind of weren't in our group.
Yeah,
you know,
well said. Yeah, even though like I was still a sports nut, but I'd still got bullied at high school, so I worked that one out.
Yeah,
but,
well, I tried to be humorous as much as I could and avoid all that sort of conflict. Too busy trying to chase the girls, to be honest.
You and me both.
Yeah. Moderately successful, but anyway.
Yeah, I was definitely not successful with a mullet, looking like Scotty Hodges. So.
Yeah, that's right. But anyway, great times.
Well, once again, I'll just get you to show the book, Benny.
We hate you like that? Yeah, heavy.
10 clubs for the golden age of the SANFL, 27 years, written by the great man himself, Ben Porter. Get yourself a copy. Where can they buy it, Ben?
Well, the good news is, as I said previously, we have just sold out. The first 1,000 copies are all gone. We gave the last copy to Sonny Morey at the Past Players Day, so that was exciting. But yes, I've just signed a contract to get another 750 books printed, which means you can get them at Dylan's bookstore. That's obviously one of the major outlets. But I also have started doing some local footy club, meet and greet days where I go and show the book to people, come and be the guest speaker at a luncheon. I sold 6 to 8 books at the Loberthal Footy Club one afternoon. So
amazing. That's
probably where the next lot will go through. But yeah, Dylan's is a good place. A toss of the coin, Jerry McGinley. A lot of people are involved in the SANFL and memorabilia. He's got a little shop on Brighton Road. He sells them there as well. So I'll make sure we restock that. Tilda's, also up at Stirling, they've sold it
online as well. You've got a Facebook page.
Look, you're talking to the wrong bloke, right? I don't know too much about it. There is a website called AustralianAuthors.com where my name, you pump in Ben Porter SANFL, you'll get it there, and that does reach me, and I can get a copy to you.
Great.
But yeah, Dylan's and Matilda's would be the way to go.
Brilliant. Ben Porter, thank you so much, mate. It's been an absolute blast.
Excellent.
Thanks for coming on Backyard Legends with Bevo, mate.
Awesome.
And sharing all those amazing stories about your life growing up and everything else. So
awesome.
Well done.
Thank you so much.